And we're off. Right. I've made notes. Hitching behind. So we're standing at, pull my jacket up because it's freezing cold here. We've just left Prince Rupert. We're standing on the outsides of Prince Rupert, pouring down the rain, tops over, thumbs out, waiting to get away. And actually, when we got out of, when we left Prince Rupert, for the rest of the adventure, it was boiling hot. Like, there was lots of sun. I can't remember really raining hardly ever, So it must be just down along the coast there, where you got the rainforest sort of conditions. Some of the hitching that we did was, in Canada was always quite amazing for you'd always get hitches. So like later on when I got back out of Europe, like you had to stand for 2 days. Here you just stand for 2 hours. There was a lot of times it was the Native American Indians who would pick you up. Later on in the story I can recollect. Hopefully I recollect in more detail the hitching characters that picked me and Steve up, Steve, and just me on my own. But serial killers type of thing. On this occasion, we've just left the couple of hitches we got. I remember there was these group of lads. They were like sort of hillbilly redneck lads. I think they were the native Indian lads, and they were basically just trying to scare me and Steve in this vehicle. Just bombing along at about 150 mile an hour. Out in the sticks there. Steve was shaking himself, and I was sort of going them on to go faster. Really shit myself as well. Like, but just trying to act cool, like, So that was mental. Other hitching. We're going along. We're hitching along the road. For some reason, we've obviously talked about something, and I know that's coming to us. That's coming to us. St. George. So heading down to St. George, I think that has a connection with Steph somehow. But we're heading down. We're heading east anyway, so we're heading where there's no rain and it's going to get hotter, and we heard that there was a serial killer on the loose, like proper one, because we saw helicopters buzzing about, and so I don't know if they were winding what up, as somebody must have said, or that they seen in the newspapers was a serial killer knocking about. And he was in this area, and the helicopters were chasing him. So obviously we're on the side of the road hitching lifts and thinking, fucking hell, that's good timing, like, So, I remember there was a hitch as well. I think it was around about this time as well. There was maybe a group of sort of 4 lads that were heading down to like the south of the States, because they were joiners and builders. They were just young lads, and they were going to go down there and be building houses and stuff, and they're saying, you should come down, you make a shit ton of money. And I think me and Steve, was just, these were grafters, like, and probably would have been good money, but I think both me and Steve were no thanks. But is when they sort of pick up, I noticed at the back, there was like mattresses out there, because it would take them it'd easily take them a week to drive down there, if not longer, because they had all the tools with them and that. But there was like a mattress and that in the back with their rucksacks. And I says, do you mind if I just crawl over on the back, on this journey, and I'm just wrecked, And he said, hey, yeah, sure, guy, go and do it, So I remember like 6 hours later, I like sort of waking up, might even be longer, And then we got out the car and said thank you, and that. Steve was like, yo, look, you fucker, He says, I had to sit and talk with him for 6 hours. He said, all I wanted to do was go on the kip. I was just saying, I feel fucking great. That's one of the best kips I've had. So we're back out on the road, hitching. We're out in the mountains. We're out in the mountains, but there's big patches of forests and stuff. It's Canada, isn't it? And you know, it's wildlife, you know, full on, you know, it's wide screen, you know, it's panoramic, it's awesome. This Native American guy pulls up in his truck. It just was just, I mean, the amount that, I mean, we must have had about, you know, about dozens and dozens and dozens and dozens of hitches, like, you know, during the whole of the trip, like, and especially up in Canada. And, you know, it's just a blank, really. These are just the ones I remember sticking in my head, but, this guy pulled up, Native American guy, truck, old truck, pickup truck. Yeah, jump in the back. I'll take you up the road. Thanks, buddy. So I was just about to throw me rucksack in, and Steve says, you jump in first, Rob, before, and then I'll throw the bags into you. I says, why? He says, because every time we do this, he says, you know, I mean, we could throw the bags in, he could drive off, you know. And I says, aye, good thinking, like, you know. So that's what we started to do. One of us would jump in first, and then we'd throw the bags in. So we're bombing along, you know, sitting in the back of this truck with hands on my rucksacks, you know, the wind blowing in my faces, and he's in his truck driving along. So there's no conversation because we're outside and he's inside. So we're bombing along, and we stopped at the sort of top of this hill, surrounded about trees and that, you know. And he says, right, fellas, this is where you've got to get out. Okay, thanks very much, mate, you know, thanks, you've helped out a lot, you know, and just off his sped, you know. So thumbs are back. It's getting late, but we think we've got another sort of 2 hours. We maybe can get one more hitch, just get along the road a little bit more, or we're sort of half thinking about maybe just setting up here. So there's another pickup comes speeding up to it and speeding to a halt. And this guy, this white fella, he goes, what the fuck are you doing? He says, well, we're just hitching. He says, for fuck's sake, jump in. He says, you're not now. Well, no. He says, well, this is the bear dump. The dump is just there and the bears come. So apparently, like, around about 6 o'clock, you get like about 30 grizzly bears, you know, sort of wander across this stretch of road and go to the dump of this little sort of housing estate type of thing where there's food dumped, so they come for all the scraps. So he says, fucking jump in quick, you know. So, and as we're speeding along, he was asking me questions who this guy was, and we're just telling him, and he was just shaking his head saying, you shouldn't have done that. So he took me further down the road, and he said, I'll drop you here. Now, I didn't know if he was doing me a favour or not, to tell you the truth. You know, this could have been even worse again. Now, I think he says the Indian reservation's just down the road. Right, he said, I'll drop you here. Thank you very much, and off he goes. So, in your head, you think an Indian reservation, oh, fucking hell, wigwams, you know, fucking, you know, just like off the cowboy and Indians movies, you know, John Wayne and all that. It's fucking great, let's go in there. Let's go to the Indian reservation, you know. So we wandered down this hill, and all I'm seeing is a sort of like what in Britain we call a council estate, which is just where all people who are, you know, your working class struggling to survive. It's, you know, it's not like a white trash caravan park, but it's like one step up from that. So to me, this is looking like, well, it just looks like, where's the wigwams, you know? It's like a fucking council estate. And, you know, they're not that well made, the houses. And it's like in the middle of this wilderness of forests and mountains. What the hell is this doing here? In the middle of nowhere? So, you know, well, this must be the Indian reservation, you know? So we wanders in, we goes in, and, you know, you get the feeling everybody, you know, there's people looking at you, Indian native people, you know, they might have like sort of Detroit shirts on and stuff like that, basketball teams and that, and see, any gang members, just sort of a few people, and then we'll find there's this little shop amongst the houses, just a little shop, and we'll go in. I remember there's a guy in there, and he had a because I had my England shirt on. I was just one of the like just a tie, just no reason to have it. It's just that's what I had with as part of my clothes, England football team shirt from the World Cup, actually, from that year. I think it was that year or the year before. And he had like his shirt was like American football, but it was fucking well worn, like it was shit, and he was wanting to swap. And I says, and I think this is the guy working in the shop. I said, I'm sorry, mate, I'm kind of sentimental value, so I kind of get, no. I mean, if it had been a nice looking shirt and in great condition, I definitely would have, like, but it's fucking rags, so sorry, and he was like, and I was thinking, am I sort of politely being mugged, but he was okay about it, and then there was another little shop we went in, and we got some other little things, and then we'll walk back up to this other little shop, and then we hung around for a cup of coffee. And it's seriously starting to get a bit late. We need to get out of this Indian reservation, because it's not there's no wigwams. It's like, it's a council estate basically. So we need to get the fuck out of here, take a risk with the grizzly bears, and get fucking put the tent up somewhere. So thanks everybody. Thanks for the drinks and that. And see you guys. So we start walking out of this council estate in the middle of the wilderness, and there's this native guy. He wasn't big, but you tell he was a fucking nutter, like, and he was talking to this other, like, he was being hyper, and he was talking to this other bloke in the car, and we sort of, I don't know, I was having a fag or something, I was stood there or something, and he's like fucking, so these two, you can tell these two are like fucking, a couple of the big shots of the tribe, like, and then he goes, so we could hear him. He says, I'm going to fucking do these fuckers here. He said, I'm going to do these fuckers here. And just the whole demeanour of him and his mate in the car, I thought, fucking hell, this guy's a fucking knacker, like, this is, like, it felt pretty serious, like, it didn't feel like a good atmosphere at all, really, in the whole place altogether, really. I mean, let's face it, the white man is in whacking around freely in an Indian fucking reservation, and I've got me sort of long hair a bit, like I am, that might have saved us. Well, what did save were, again, every time it was Steve's accent, it was the Scottish, because he came out and he was wanting money off her, obviously, and the last thing you're gonna do is get money out of Steve, right? Fucking no mugger on the planet is gonna get Steve to pull money out of his pocket. Fucking Scotsman, no fucking chance. So I'm just fucking, and I was like, I wasn't happy. He gives a couple of, Steve was like talk. He was doing the bit this time. He was trying to get what out of it. Either one of us would do it, like, when these occasions would arise. So it was obviously Steve took the lead in this time, on this occasion. He knew the danger, like, so, he was soft stroking the guy on Scottish, and giving him all that, and then he looked at me, this guy, and I must have been giving him a fucking dirty look or something, like, and he looked at me, and I thought, I fucking blew it here, like, and then Steve pulled it back towards him again, and I mean, he was basically wanting to get Mugwa, but he didn't, and it wouldn't have happened if it had just been with him and his mate, but, we're in the middle of the Indian reservation, and, like, how many's going to fucking turn up, and is this fella from the shop going to turn up and think, on second thoughts, I think I will have your England t-shirt. Thank you very much. So, but we both calmed that situation down as well, because I thought in my mind, I thought I'm gonna sort of make this guy my best mate, you know. So we calmed that situation down, and then we walked out and just got a good bit of distance away from the reservation, and started to get up the road. And it's getting hot, you know. The next day, you know, it's just getting hot. The weather's warming up. It's getting a little bit more mountainous, and then we're coming to a section that I sort of I sort of remember quite fondly, really. Like it was I think it was because it was like a sort of ethereal or a little bit magical, because we're up in these mountains, and the mountains were sort of like a bit barren, but I don't have a clue where we were, like, but almost as if it was in Canada, like, but it was very dry, it was boiling hot, and there was all these mountains going on forever. So when you're on the top of these sort of mountainy roads, it's a bit dusty. There's not really that many, it's not forests anymore, it's sort of dry. But when you're up there and you're looking, you're right on top of the world, like, you know, and you're looking for like miles and miles and miles and miles of this big panoramic view of mountains. It felt desert-ish, anyway, shrublandish sort of thing. And there was a town at the bottom. That's probably how I ended up here, because there was a sort of, when I say a town, it was just like a few buildings, basically. There was a phone box there, and like a sort of post, like a general store, post office type of thing. You know, really, really quite Wild West. You know, you hit the right places in Canada, and you're sort of you're in the Wild West of the United States, like 100 years earlier, more so than the States at that time, you know, because of the sort of barren, open spaces of Canada. You know, it was like a lot of places were like, oh, you know, it was like going back in time to the Wild West, literally. That's what I felt like, anyway. And so I think we probably arrived at this little sort of tin pot, few houses and general store first, and then we've wandered up this. We've asked about work or something like that, and we've been told we were told that this is the tomato picking area, right? So there'd be these sort of farms on this shrubland. You know, each sort of mountain's got a farm on it, and where they grow lines of potatoes, right? So they would have people, they would hire people, quite often like traveling students or traveling people, you know, maybe French, Canadian French and that. It was so vast, like, it's not like there was a load of students there, because there wasn't. There was these students anyway, but you know, there's that many, it's that vast and that many tomato picking farms. So anyway, because it was basically just me and Stephen, so that far. But went up the hill, obviously. So yeah, well, probably so and so's up the top of that hill there. He's looking for people. So went up. It's just a small family farm, and they've got like a little next to the dusty road as you drove past. There's like a sort of shed where they sell the tomatoes for people driving past can buy the tomatoes, and I think there was homemade cider they were doing as well. You know, very rural, very, very sort of, you know, going back in time. And there was a bit of land just to the one side, down the hill a little bit, just next to the farm, really. The dusty wooden shack vibe things that was there. And that's where me and Steve put the tents up, because we've got, you can start tomorrow. What you do is you you go into this field here, you've got a line of tomatoes, you pick them and you put your tomatoes into this box, and we'll pay you $1 for every box you fill with tomatoes. Great. So we'll go to the campsite, which is just me and Steve, and I noticed parked as well a motorhome, but it was a very old motorhome, and that was parked there. Right, so we set with tents up. There was a black dog lying about all the time as well. The farm dog, like a big lazy black Labrador or something it was. Used to just lie inside my tent all the time. So we're having a rest. The door opens in the motorhome, and turns out it's an old fella, and this old fella's called Franklin Cameron. And Franklin Cameron was an old Vietnam War veteran. And he'd been travelling around like many people do in the States and Canada. You know, if they haven't got a banjo, you know, or what they do is they go job to job, you know. So it's like kind of like a hobo, but he's got his old motorhome. And talking to him, he'd been travelling around for years with his little dog. What these people do is they go and get jobs. They go to place. I mean, they'll go all over the States and all over Canada just for these little jobs. They'll stay there for months and they'll go somewhere else for months and do another job. So he travelled around for years with his little dog. He showed us. I saw this sort of painting on the side of his motorhome. He says, "Oh, that's me dog. That was me dog. And I got somebody to paint that on the side of the motorhome for us." And he was a sort of skinny guy, you know, short hair, not like a hippie. He was a bloke. He wasn't like a hippie dippy in any way. He was a bloke. He definitely, even though he was like sort of skinny and that, he was definitely, an ex-vet, sort of a veteran type thing, you know, military veteran. And he said he was reciting, as we're talking, he's starting to talk about Jesus and the Bible. And, then obviously me and Steve were just like a couple of 28, 29-year-old sort of rockers, you know, heavy metal and all that. So, you know, wasn't, no godly awareness or anything then at that point, you know, open mind, but certainly don't want to hear it pushed down. I didn't want to hear it pushed down my throat all the time. I didn't want to be, when he was starting to sort of, you know, going on about the Lord and all this sort of stuff. And it turns out he was going to continue doing these jobs, and he was going to become a preacher. That's what because he might have said you got to take some sort of exams or something like that, but that's what he was going to become. He was going to become a preacher, and he was just working to get to that after, you know, years of traveling around doing jobs and being in the military. And so that's the three of them. So we're the three workers when you've got the dog just sitting about, lazing about. Husband and wife up at the farm. They've got some daughters, maybe a couple of sons. There's busyness happening up on the farm with the little farm shop. I mean, I don't know how they sold anything, like, because I kind of hardly remember any cars going past. You know, very rarely. It was that remote, you know. I mean, the only bit of excitement in the whole place was the phone booth at the bottom. Like, that was the entertainment, like, you know. Tumbleweed type of thing blowing about. So we start working on picking the tomatoes, and it's fucking hard work, like, because it's boiling hot, like. And just these images, like, Steve, you know, me and Steve's over there, and Franklin Cameron's down at the edge of this small patch, like, really. It's not like a massive, but, you know, he's he's shouting about these, Jesus, and I sort of cracked us. I cracked and I said something. Oh, fucking hell, mate! Give her a fucking break, man. I didn't want to hear it, And Steve sort of pulled us to one side and says, "Look, Rob, we're different now. This bloke, watch what you're saying, And I was like, So that's going on. We're getting $1 a box, Obviously, Franklin Cameron's, ex-vet, so he's fucking grafting away like a proper worker, Me and Steve are like sort of, limp-wristed sort of arty creatives, trying our best to do men's work, Oh, fucking hell, I've got $1 here. Look, Steve, this is full. I've got myself $1. Meanwhile, Franklin Cameron's like on his fucking 50,000th fucking crate or something, So we're doing that, and Dia's doing that. And I remember back around the tents in the motorhome, because I'd be doing me carving, and I think Franklin Cameron, so he's like a British Native American, this guy, with his carving his little native stuff out of bits of wood, bits of tree. So I was doing that. I remember he sort of he's like bushcraft. He says, look, and he took us to this bush where there's these blackberries, and pulled some blackberries off, and he had a hand, and we said, go on, to have a taste of one of them. And I did, straight away. I didn't question. And later on, I was telling that to Steve, and Steve says, well, they could have been poisoned, them, like. And I just sort of thought, fucking hell, Yeah, it's great when you sort of youngish and naive as fuck, You go on adventures, like, because if you're old and wise, you definitely don't. Fucking hell, no chance. So I took into the berries, and afterwards, obviously, I thought, like, after Steve had said that, I thought, aye. I mean, he could have finished us off there with one berry, But so that then I sort of thought to myself, well, he goes on about Jesus and all that, but he's not out to get us, like, So actually liked Franklin Cameron a lot, I sort of just into that fascinating character, when just sort of understood him a bit, his time was going on, sort of understood him, and he was a good bloke, he was a good fella, and it was and right at the end, patient, I saw that, so we're doing that. And I'm not sure, maybe it's a couple of weeks or something, and any of these jobs going on for months, because me and Steve are just like, fucking hell, we're not grafting, like, as long as we get enough just to get one to the next place. And so maybe it's two weeks of this or something, and I remember the guy from the farm, he says, we're going into the city. Is there anything you want? Because, and when they say that, it's like a day's drive. It's like a 10-hour drive to go and get to the nearest supermarket. And that's what they would do. They go to the nearest supermarket or town, which would be like a full day's drive away, 10 hours drive. 10 hours there, 10 hours back. So that's how, remote these places are. And I says, could you get us some scalpels? He says, scalpels? I says, yeah. I said, I do these wood carvings. And I just showed him, they're just hand-sized. Like, imagine like a little totem pole carved out of a branch. Because and it was like, the best wood would be what was found on the coast, like, say at Prince Rupert. It was the driftwood stuff, because it was really easy to carve, because it was kind of soft because of the water, but it dried out on the beach. So I mean, you just walk, and what I would used to do, going back to that, looking at the coastline along there of British Columbia, I would see pieces of driftwood, and you could see like, oh, that would make a good bird's head, or that would make a good bear. You know, you can see, and I said that to some the Native American guy in Prince Rupert, who was working in this art shop with this woman, and he says, when I said that, he says, yes, that's exactly what it is. He says that is Native American culture. He says we see the animal in the wood, and then we carve it. We carve the animal. We see it first in the wood. And I thought, fucking hell, I'm getting Native American here without us realising it, you know. And so I was carrying these sort of, as well as carrying all my stuff, I was carrying little bits of driftwood, you know, sort of palm-sized hands, little bits, which I knew would I'd be able to carve into these things that I could see. So that was additional things to carry. Like, I'm carrying bits of wood around with us, but I was so much into it. I thought I was just really into it, like, you know, into the wood carving. But it's all just creative, you know. It's just creative. So, you know, obviously I'm on this site up in, you know, this tomato picking farm, and I'm cutting these bits of wood. But I was using scalpels as well. Like, I wasn't using like a knife, sharp knife or anything. I was using scalpels for some reason. Maybe I just thought it was just going easy into the wood. And the wood, it's not like I'm carving a totem pole. It's just little small pieces, you know, intricate, detailed little pieces. And yeah, I'll come back. Of course, yeah, I'll bring you some scalpels back. Yeah, absolutely. So, you know, they came back with some food for and that, and some scalpels. So, and I'm just happy. I've got doing me tomato picking, and then I'm doing me a bit of wood carving. And then one day, when I'm looking now, and I haven't got the scar. That could be it there. Maybe it's a little bit there, but I had the scalpel slipped, and it went into the flesh. It went into the flesh between my thumb and my finger on my left hand, and it went deep. It went fucking deep, so deep that it was like a little mouth opening and shutting in between me thumb and my finger. And, you know, I mean, you know, now you would freak out, you know, like, fucking hell, I've got any health insurance. If that becomes septic, I'm fucked. I'll lose my hand or my arm. I mean, the nearest hospital's like got to be, you know, is at least fucking a day's drive away, if not more. But I'm not thinking. I'm just like looking at, and then so, you know, I was maybe showing Franklin camera. Say, look at that. See what I've done. And he said, "Whoa," you know, he wasn't freaking out. He says, "Right, we'll have to get something on that." Like, so he put a bandage. He put something on it and a bandage around it, and he fixed us up. You know, ex Vietnam military veteran fixed us up. You know, and thank you very much, mate. You know, not really probably knowing the possible seriousness of it, really. You know, I've just cut my hand. It's nasty. It's not very nice, but that bandage going on might have seriously helped, like, you know. But I remember the bandage was on a while, but I had the scar for fucking years and years and years, and I'm looking now, it's can't really see now, like, I thought I would have had the scar for life, like. But so Franklin's done that for us, picking some more tomatoes. Steve is actually going down, and he's keeping in touch with Steph. So he's going down to, he's walking. I remember him walking all the way down the hill, the mountain hill. Like, it take about an hour to get down there, an hour to get back up, and because to go to the little phone booth outside the general store. And it was later on in the night he went, obviously, because it's Steve in it. And I remember on the next morning, he says, because he'd spoke to Steph on the phone, he'd give her a ring back up, and she was still back up at Prince Rupert. And he came back, and the next day he showed us the back of his legs, the bottom of his legs were all red raw, bitten the fuck. He says, I was talking on the phone. He says, I didn't realise. And the little phone, it's at night. He says, the little phone's got like a little white bulb in it so you can see what you're doing. Well, that attracted all these midges. And he's talking to me on the phone. He didn't realise he was getting bitten the fuck all the bottom of his legs, but his legs were well raw, like. And I'm saying, oh, how are I? She's all right. Aye, she's fine. Aye. She's wanting to come out and join with you now. I'm saying, well, like, I can't remember what was said, but I think he was sort of, hinting on though, like. And so, well, okay, he's just talking. So, I think he'd done it. I think he's done about 2 or 3 walking down the hills, walking down the mountain and talking on the phone 2 or 3 times. And picking tomatoes again, that's another $1 there, that's another $1 there. So it all mounts up. I mean, I never made a fortune, like, but, it all mounts up. And one morning, come out the tent, getting ready, and Frank and Cameron's there. And he says, he's putting his sort of, like, looks like he's packing up stuff, He says, we've got to go. We've been chucked off the farm. I says, what do you mean? He says, we've got to go. We've been chucked off the farm. I says, well, why? For what? What's happening, like? There's tomatoes to pick, and he just showed his shoulders. He says, I don't know. He says, I didn't. Oh, no, he didn't say that. What he said was, he said, apparently somebody was walking around the farm late at night. And I've went, well, who's doing that? And he's looking at us, and I'm saying, well, it wasn't me. And I said, well, who's doing that? And Steve's coming out of his tent, yawning. And I said, well, who's done that? And he just looked at the two, and he says, I don't know, but we've got to go. And, it wasn't me. It wasn't Franklin Cameron, but it might have been Steve. But I don't know that for certain. But Steve liked his night walks. He liked to go out for a wander. And, that's what he did, right? And where he went and what he done. But the facts are the facts. And what again? So, Steve's saying, well, fucking I don't know, I fucking got any idea, So, but I thought it was good the way Frank and Cameron. I mean, I didn't crack on like thinking it's Steve, like, it was just like when you think about it, you think about it afterwards, you think, who the fuck's who's wandering about, So, but I like the way Frank and Cameron didn't have an opinion on it. He just was that's the way it is. It's time to go. I mean, that's just the way it was, So I remember Frank and Cameron was gone, man. He was gone. He probably got his money and he was gone within a couple of hours. Just drive off, see us, off he went. Probably pissed off, like, or, maybe, I don't know. I cannot say who it was. Was it him? Wasn't me. We'll never know. So he goes, so how and Steve, let's get packed up, let's hit the road. And I don't think we said goodbye, like, I think I can't even remember how we got our money, like. I didn't even remember if we're getting paid at the end of each day or what happened, like, but I think I was huffed at that, I thought, well, fucking hell, I haven't got much, have I? So there was just like a football hanging about, like a football, soccer ball, and I just picked that up, and I thought, I'll have that. I'll have that. I'll get that, like. So that went in my rucksack. So that was a shame. That was a shame. So we're hitching, we'll get back out up on the road and just do a long walk away from this farm. Actually, I have to go back a section as well. There was one day when we were picking the tomatoes on the field. I've just remembered there was. I'm in this field, and I heard this rumble, and I looked to my left, and there was this plane. It was like something out of Star Wars. It was like these were like enormous planes, and it came. There were military planes, like military planes on an exercise, so they were low flying, and they were coming through the mountains, like probably just practicing to avoid radars type thing, and they come around like on an angle sideways, so you're looking like they're flying past, but you're at your eye level, and tipped right over, so you can actually you can see the sparkle in the pilot's eye. You're that close, like, as they came through. But these military jets, were absolutely fucking enormous, and they were moving in. It's like slow motion the way they came around. Must have been about 7 of them. Not all at once. One will come past, and then straight, and then there's another couple. So the whole thing lasted about 5 or 10 minutes, and I'm just stood there, with a tomato in my hand, just mouth wide open, gobsmacked. It like this science fiction panoramic thing I'm watching with these massive military jets. They have to go sideways like that to go around these mountains. I suppose that's why they've got to do it, because they're steering around these mountains. And that was an amazing. That was one of the most amazing things I've ever seen, and I'm doing no justice to it here, trying to describe it here, but it was an amazing thing to see. And just why, just out of the blue, you're just picking tomatoes in the middle of nowhere, and then one of the most amazing things you've ever seen happens. And you sometimes, like on YouTube, I've seen like a couple of videos of that, but the planes I saw were like, I've never seen a video of the planes as big as the ones I saw. I don't know what sort of jets they were like, but they weren't even jets, just massive planes, maybe they were cargo planes. But how these things can go by so slow and not be that big and not fall out the air is remarkable. Like, it was proper sci-fi. Like, so anyway, me and Steve are back out on the road. That was a sad ending, really, because I know those were a nice family, and that those were decent people in that farm, like, just decent farm family, just kind of little house on the prairie type of thing, just getting by, nice people, probably Christian sort of people, like that sort of vibe, so back out on the road, I remember saying to Steve as I'm bouncing this soccer ball up and down, and I thought, like, standing hitching, right, is boring, right, and my creative mind has to be doing something. So even just kicking a football up and down on my foot is passing the time until, and then Steve's got his thumb out, and I'm doing, which actually turned out to be quite cute. It looked good, it's a funny thing. And a couple of hitches have said, well, I stopped because you were kicking a football, man. I mean, that's original one, that, like. And, I'm just laughing. I'm just passing the time. It's boring, stood there, And, but I remember bouncing this ball, and we're talking about stuff being stolen or something. So something might have been stolen or something from the farm. But that sort of conversation one, I remember saying to Steve, as we stood there, waiting for a lift, well, I've never stole out, And then Steve's well, looking at the football, he says, well, what about that? I says, well, this doesn't count for anything. It was just an old football. It's probably just that black dog's ball, It's just an old. He says, well, it's still stealing, isn't it? I says, nah, don't be daft, And I'm just, then I'm playing keepsy uppy while he's got his thumb with.